Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy. Thanks for joining us today, May 30th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feast and Marian meditations. Well, today we have a great number of feasts that take us to some unexpected places. So we'll go to Mexico, then to Indonesia, Rome, France, and then to Switzerland. It's sort of a busy day today. So let's start off then with Our Lady of the Sacred Heart in Mexico. This goes back to 1966. So when Hitler's armies defeated the French and entered the city of Paris in the later part of 1939, a young woman, Maria Endizabal, fled from France to live in Mexico. When she got to Veracruz, she wanted to make that city her new home, but among her few possessions, she had a very large picture of Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, which she wanted to give to some church, since she was going to live in a small town and she was going to have a small room, right? So Father Juan Gomez of the Church of San Jose, St. Joseph, allowed her to place the image on the wall of the vestibule on February 2nd, 1940. Now, that very same evening, a 9-year-old boy who was afflicted with infantile paralysis was immediately cured after praying before the image of Our Lady of the Sacred Heart. Right? The youth left his crutches on the floor and hurried home to tell his mom. So then more people kept coming and coming and coming, right? So eventually, like after 1 week, the pastor took down the picture from the wall and put it in the front of the church so everybody could see it, right? Even though the shrine of Our Lady had only, it's not that old of a shrine, there have been thousands of cures performed through the intercession of the Blessed Mother, right? And they've been verified by affidavits from reliable physicians in the presence of notaries. You can see all these documents, right, in the shrine. And one father, in gratitude for the cure of his daughter, had a silversmith make a new frame for the picture. So the picture frame is a fitting gift, and it says it's indescribably beautiful. Well, next we're going to go across the world to Gua Maria Sumber Kahuripan in Jibdak, in Sukbumi, in West Java, Indonesia. Right? So this is the Mary Grotto of the Living Spring at St. Francis Catholic Church, which was begun in 2000, completed in 2003, and blessed on, you guessed it, May 30th, 2004. It's located in the densely populated, largely Islamic or Muslim province of West Java, where Catholics are less than 1% of the population, right? So it's interesting because they have this tradition where at special masses in May and October, the pilgrims write down prayer requests on slips of paper and then you burn them in front of the altar. Oh, that's interesting, right? Usually we just hold on to them, but that's okay, burn them. Next, we celebrate Consolatrix Afflictorum in Rome, Italy, right? So this painting in the Church of Santa Maria del Suffragio was crowned in 1880, right? So the Consolatrix Afflictorum was brought to Rome from Mexico. That sounds a little strange, I know, but in 1773 by the Jesuit Jimenez, who had, when the Society of Jesus was suppressed, he found refuge with some companions of the oratory of the Suffragio, right? And so at the point of his death, he bequeathed it to them with the stipulation that it be placed there for veneration, right? Legend has it, though, unfortunately, that the Consolatrix was forgotten for some years in a closet, until in 1781, the Virgin appeared insistently in a dream to a priest, ordering him to place the image on an altar. So in 1818, Pope Pius VII delegated to Cardinal Di Pietro the sale of all the votive offerings surrounding the image, so that with the proceeds, the chapel could be decorated more beautifully, right? In 1880, Our Lady was solemnly crowned by the chapter of St. Peter's, right? I assume one of those events took place on May 30th. We also celebrate today Notre Dame de Mirakel in Dieul's Indre Centre in France. So we're told that the statue bled when struck in 1187. So this is the miracle that took place in 1187. The language is, I'll just read it. The Coutreaux, or Routier, or Barbasson were scoundrels from the sect of Pierre de Bruy, a kind of Manichaean who had mainly infected Languedoc and Gascony with his airs. They professed to fear neither God nor man. They would hire themselves out to anyone who wanted to commit a crime and were known for all kinds of brigandage. In 1174, Henry II, King of England, took them into his service to fight his son Richard. Richard did as his father's done, and Philip Augustus followed the example of his rivals. So to protect the town of Déo from the attempts of the French king, who was laying siege to Châteauroux, Richard sent a reinforcement of Couturier to the first stronghold. On May 29th, 1187, several of these soldiers were playing dice in front of the north side of the church, where an image of the Blessed Mother holding the infant Jesus in her arm was held in great veneration. Then it says, one of them, a demon-possessed monster of iniquity, that's quite a beautiful descriptor, it says, Rigord, the historian of Philip Augustus, was losing ill-gotten money at this detestable game, so everything's terrible about it, and in anger he burst into blasphemy against the Blessed Virgin and God. Then, overcome with rage, he looked up and saw carved on the church portico the image of the Blessed Mother holding the infant Jesus in her arms. He looked at her with eyes glittering with fury, and in his criminal delirium spewed torrents of blasphemies against our common queen and against God. O sorrow! This wretch, this new Judas, seizes a stone and in full view of everyone throws it against the holy image, breaking the infant Jesus' arm and causing it to fall to the ground. Immediately, it says we know this from people who were at the siege, blood gushed from the wound and ran to the ground. The unfortunate Couturier, who had been guilty of such a horrible attack, was seized by a frenzied movement and expired in the square. He died. Okay, so anyways, then people arrived and they collected the precious debris and put it in a rich chapel that was built in England, right? Philip Augustus feared that the presence of the Couturier in his army would bring down the curse of heaven upon him and his weapons, and he dismissed all those in his pay. Rigord, recounting this miracle, adds that a host of sick people, having received a few drops of this precious blood, were instantly cured of their infirmities, right? And so this is a very interesting celebration. And it says that since time immemorial, which I guess must be at least back to 1100s, a commemorative feast has been celebrated in the Diocese of Bourges on May 31st, under the title of The Miracle of Notre-Dame de Déolie. So that's the way it is. And last but not least, we go to Maria Hilf-Gubel in Menzing, in Switzerland, in Zug, Switzerland. I guess the name means Mary the Helper on the Gubel. So, at the beginning of the Reformation, preached by Martin Luther, we're told that the Protestant heresy spread in various countries through the preaching of reformers who tried to capture the benevolence of secular power. Ulrich Zwingli played this role in Zurich. He had been the lieutenant priest of Grossmünster in Zurich until the end of 1518. His heretical doctrine was opposed to the entire heritage of the faith. He refused the commandment of fasting and then the celibacy of priests. He then rejected ecclesiastical authority and had his doctrine officially recognized by the Greek Council of Zurich. So he did all these terrible things, and so they were very upset. Anyways, he declared war on the Catholic cantons of Lucerne, Uri, Schwyz, Unterwalden, and Zug, right? In May 1531, the canton of Bern, united with Zurich, imposed a grain embargo on the Catholic cantons, which engendered a shortage. But Catholics were for the first time comforted by the apparition of the Blessed Virgin Mary on the Feast of Pentecost 1531. On October 9th, 1531, the Christian Alliance entered the campaign. Right? On October 11th, 1531, the Virgin Mary appeared, it says, for the first time to encourage the Catholic party. Right? Uran Captain Jauch led the attack near Kappel, and Zwingli and many of his followers died in the battle. Right? So Zurich then sent those who were able to bear arms. This band plundered the Catholic communities and desecrated the churches. On the evening of October 23rd, they camped in front of the Fürschingwand. A new apparition of Our Lady Help of Christians came to encourage the defenders of the faith. Led by Captain Christian Iten, they then advanced to Gubel. After praying, they attacked a far superior force by night and defeated them, inflicting heavy casualties. So there you have it. That's what we're celebrating in the Marian world today, May 30th. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we come to the second point of Meditation 75, entitled The Death of Mary. This point is entitled Death of Love. Mary was dying through love throughout her life. Love had been her fever. St. Teresa of Jesus felt like dying because she could not actually die. Blessed Imelda died in an ecstasy. So many other saints, being unable to stand the fire of love which consumed them, actually died of it. What then happened in the heart of Mary? The astonishing thing is that she could still live. A continuous miracle was needed, else she would have long ago died of love. Have you ever seen a tree heavenly laden with fruit, barely able to keep its branches aloft? Such was the case of our Heavenly Mother. She was a fruit-laden tree. Her soul could hardly bear the weight of so much grace, whose fullness she had had from the first instant of her life. And that precious weight went on increasing without ceasing for a single moment. How could that body, so pure, holy, and immaculate, contain that soul, which from her conception was being pulled with irresistible strength towards heaven? Moreover, how powerful would that attraction be, with which the soul of our mother gravitated towards Jesus? How strong would the longing be, with which that most white dove was urged to fly to him? Those words of the psalm, "Alas, how my exile has been lengthened! How long have I been living with the dwellers of cedar? How long has my soul been a pilgrim in this life?" These words were undoubtedly written of her. At times with more ardor than David, she would exclaim, "O God, my whole soul longs for thee, as a deer for running water. My soul thirsts for God, the living God. Shall I never again make my pilgrimage into God's presence?" Finally, with the angels, she would utter those words of the Song of Songs, "I charge you, maidens of the heavenly Jerusalem, if you find my beloved, tell me that I pine away with love." Every moment would that volcano burning within her soul increase until it consumed and devoured her completely. Oh, that you could love God in this manner and be consumed by his love. For today's reading from The Admirable Heart of Mary by St. John Eudes, we continue with chapter 10, entitled Heart of Mary, Center of the Cross and Crown of Martyrs, Doctors, and Virgins. Among the countless martyrs, I shall cite 3 who hold special obligations to the heart of the Blessed Mother. First is John Travers, an Irish theologian, imprisoned and burned at the stake by Henry VIII of England. It is recorded that he prayed particularly to Our Lady for the grace of martyrdom, which she promised to him. When the tribunal of judges asked if he had written a book in defense of the primacy of the Pope, he cried out, showing his hand, "Here are the 3 fingers with which I wrote the book, and I shall never retract." Although his body was burned, those 3 fingers remained intact, nor was it possible to burn them. Secondly, I cite St. Andrew of Scio in Greece, sustained by Our Lady through the most terrible and prolonged martyrdom at the hands of the Mohammedans in 1463. His mangled remains were found to have been miraculously restored in the grave, so that his body, when disinterred by the faithful, appeared whole and incorrupt because of his constant invocation of Our Lady. The third martyr, chosen because of the extent of his sufferings and his prayers while being dismembered, is St. James Interchis, a Persian who obtained his crown under the emperor Theodosius the Younger.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.